I stood on the balcony of our suite, the sun glinting off the turquoise waves below, and I could feel the tension prickling beneath my calm exterior. My silk blouse clung softly to my skin, the faint scent of jasmine from the hotel's gardens drifting up to me. Everything looked perfect. The cruise was a dream, the kids were laughing somewhere below, and I had finally made a life that felt mine. Then my phone buzzed. The message was short, almost casual. "You really think you can do this without me ruining it?" Vera. My stepmother. Vera. The woman who had spent years belittling me, undermining me at every turn, who somehow believed she could sabotage every joy I fought to create. I felt a twinge of irritation, but also a quiet, simmering satisfaction. I had anticipated this, of course. Her threats were as predictable as the tides. I pressed a hand to the cool metal railing and let the breeze play with my hair. My thoughts flickered back to the past, the hurt, the sneers, the countless moments she tried to make me feel small. But now, standing here, watching my children's excitement bubble below, I realized how far I had come. There was irony in the air, sharp but sweet. She had no idea that every effort to derail me had only fueled the fire that brought me here. And soon, she would see the truth in a way she could never undo. I remember the day Vera first tried to convince me that I wasn't enough. I was 17, standing in the cramped kitchen of our old house in Chicago, the sunlight slanting through the blinds and making the dust motes dance like tiny golden spirits. I had just told her I was planning to apply for a summer internship at a boutique design firm, my first real step toward independence. Her laughter had cut through the air, sharp and mocking. "Olivia, don't be ridiculous," she said, arms crossed, lips curled. "You'll never handle it. Why don't you just stay here where it's safe? You're too fragile for the real world." I felt the heat rise in my chest, a lump forming in my throat. My hands shook slightly as I gripped the edge of the counter. Fragile. That word had been thrown at me so often I almost believed it myself. But then I remembered the words my grandmother had whispered to me the night before. "Darling, the world only respects the ones who refuse to shrink. You have to take your space, even if they try to push you down." Those words became my shield. They were a tiny, radiant spark in the darkness Vera had created around me, a reminder that I could fight, even if my voice trembled. I walked out of that kitchen with my head high, a quiet resolve hardening inside me. I applied for the internship, even knowing Vera would scoff at every email, every letter of acceptance, every small step I dared to take. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need anyone's permission to build my life. That day, I made a decision. I would create a future that belonged to me, one I could be proud of, regardless of the voices that had tried to hold me back. I would prove, not to them, but to myself, that I was capable, strong, and worthy. And that decision, small as it seemed then, was the first stone in the foundation of everything I would achieve. After that summer internship, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. Possibility. Every morning, I woke before dawn, coffee steaming in my hands, the city quiet except for the occasional hum of a passing car. I spent hours sketching designs, sending emails, building connections I could barely imagine when I was still under Vera's shadow. It wasn't easy. There were nights I sat on my tiny apartment floor, surrounded by scattered papers, wondering if I had made a mistake. Self-doubt gnawed at me relentlessly. I remember my grandmother's words and tried to turn them into a mantra, but sometimes, when the silence was too loud, I questioned if I was strong enough. Then I met Clara Bennett, a seasoned interior designer who immediately saw something in me I hadn't yet fully recognized myself. She was sharp, unapologetically ambitious, and the first person who treated my ideas as valuable. Under her guidance, I learned the intricacies of client management, the delicate art of negotiations, and the importance of standing my ground. Every critique, every challenge, was a step forward. I still struggled, of course. There were clients who doubted me, opportunities that slipped through my fingers, and the ever-present fear that I wasn't moving fast enough. But I clung to my victories, no matter how small. The first client who trusted me with a full room redesign, The first sale that actually put money in my bank account. Those moments became proof that I could thrive without anyone's approval. I learned to celebrate these wins quietly. I posted vague updates online, careful not to let Vera or my family see the magnitude of my success. I wanted them to assume I was still the same struggling girl, the one they had always dismissed. And while that required discipline, it also gave me a peculiar kind of power. I was free to grow on my own terms, unobserved, unstoppable. By the time my kids were born, I had already carved out a life I was proud of, a life Vera could never touch. I ran my own boutique interior design firm, secured a few high-profile projects, and developed a reputation for creativity and reliability. It wasn't flashy. It was mine. Every late night, every sacrifice, every quiet triumph built the woman who now planned a luxury cruise for my children, a dream I had almost been told I didn't deserve. And as I prepared the itinerary, double-checking the cabin arrangements and special excursions for the kids, I felt a small, private thrill. Vera could try all she wanted. She had no idea the level of success I had quietly amassed. She had no idea the kind of woman she had underestimated. And soon, very soon, she would find out. The morning Vera arrived, I felt a strange mix of calm and anticipation. My children were giggling in the background, excited about the first day of our luxury cruise, completely unaware of the tension simmering just a floor above. I had instructed the hotel staff to guide her to the suite, unaware that she would see just how far she had misjudged me. When the door opened, her eyes widened almost imperceptibly. I didn't move at first. I let her take in the room. The polished mahogany floors reflected the morning light. The custom-designed furnishings spoke of taste and careful planning, and the view of the open sea stretched endlessly, glittering like diamonds. Expensive art adorned the walls, but each piece carried a story, a testament to every challenge, every small victory, every lesson I had learned along the way. Olivia? Her voice was tentative, almost fragile, the confidence she usually wielded like a weapon noticeably absent. I smiled, soft but firm, and gestured toward the seating area. Please have a seat. Let's talk. She hesitated, then moved as if walking on unfamiliar ground, her eyes scanning everything as if hoping to spot a trick, a flaw. There wasn't one. Every detail reflected not just wealth, but thoughtfulness, precision, and a lifetime of perseverance. I let the silence stretch. Her disbelief hung in the air like a thick fog. Then I spoke, slowly, deliberately. You came here thinking I was still the same girl you tried to control. That I would falter, that I would let you ruin this for my children. But look around, Vera. This is what happens when you underestimate someone you've spent years trying to diminish. Her lips parted slightly, eyes flicking nervously from the view to the furnishings, to me. But how? She whispered, the word barely audible. I leaned back, letting the moment settle. I started small. Remember when you told me I was too fragile for the world? That I should stay here, where it's safe. I took that as a challenge. I built something. Quietly. Patiently. And now I run my own design firm. I have a net worth that would surprise you. And this cruise? This is for my kids, something I've been planning for months, entirely on my terms. The color drained from her face. Her usual sharp tongue faltered. I didn't realize. No, you didn't, I said gently but firmly. You never did. And now it's too late. I've outgrown the need for your approval. The only thing you can do is watch, or perhaps learn, how a woman who refuses to be diminished thrives anyway. She opened her mouth to respond, but I saw the flicker of shame, disbelief, and perhaps the first trace of understanding. She had expected to find a struggling girl, vulnerable and easily manipulated. Instead, she found a woman who had become untouchable in every way that mattered. And the best part? She didn't realize that this revelation wasn't just a victory for me. It was a lesson she could carry, a chance for her to reflect on her own actions, if she was capable of it. I smiled inwardly, thinking of the irony. All the attempts to sabotage me, to mar my life, had only prepared me for this moment, This confrontation where the truth would strike harder than any words or schemes ever could. With Vera standing there, stunned and unsteady, I realized the moment of reckoning had arrived. I had the upper hand now, not just in wealth, but in experience, resilience, and clarity. I could choose to punish, humiliate, or ignore her entirely. But that wasn't the woman I had become. Instead, I decided to set the terms, my terms. Firm, clear, and designed to foster growth rather than perpetuate the toxic patterns that had haunted my life. Vera, I began, letting the words hang in the air. I am not here to destroy you. But if you want to remain a part of my life and my children's lives, there are conditions. Things you must understand and respect. Her eyes widened, a flicker of fear replacing the arrogance that usually defined her. First, I said, you will acknowledge the ways you've tried to hurt me. No excuses. No blame shifting. You cannot move forward if you refuse to see your own actions clearly. She flinched but stayed silent. Second, you will respect my independence, financially, emotionally, and professionally. Any attempt to control or undermine will have consequences. I have worked too hard to be made small again. Her lips pressed together, the weight of my words sinking in. Third, I continued softer now, you will focus on your own growth. If there are dreams you've neglected, talents you've dismissed, this is your chance. Stop trying to take from others what you haven't built for yourself. I watched as a mix of guilt and confusion washed over her face. This wasn't the confrontation she had anticipated. There were no tears, no shouting, just accountability. And, perhaps for the first time, clarity. I am willing to help, I added, my voice steady, but only if these conditions are met. Compassion is not weakness. It is strength. And I am strong enough to guide you, but not to coddle the patterns that have caused so much harm. She nodded slowly, an uneasy but genuine willingness beginning to emerge. It wasn't instant redemption, I didn't expect it to be, but it was a start. I felt a sense of calm, almost serenity, settle over me. For years, Vera had held the power to make me feel small. But now, the power dynamic had shifted completely. I was the architect of this relationship, and of my life. I could offer connection, guidance, and forgiveness, but only on my terms, in ways that respected my boundaries and my hard-won dignity. For the first time, I saw Vera not just as the antagonist of my past, but as someone who might, if willing, learn to transform her own life. And that, more than any luxury cruise or financial success, was the true measure of how far I had come. Weeks passed after that confrontation, and I watched quietly as Vera began to change, slowly, hesitantly, but with genuine effort. She stopped making snide remarks, started asking questions about my work, and even encouraged my children's little projects with a sincerity I hadn't expected. It was far from perfect, but it was progress. I often found myself on the balcony in the early morning, coffee in hand, the gentle hum of the ship below, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The hurt, the doubts, the countless times I had felt small, they had all been necessary steps to becoming the woman I was today. The woman who could plan a dream cruise for her children, navigate family tension with grace, and still maintain her dignity and independence. I thought about my grandmother's words again. The world only respects the ones who refuse to shrink. They had been my compass through storms of self-doubt, betrayal, and relentless criticism. And now, standing in the sunlight, watching my children squeal with delight as they raced toward the pool, I understood the full weight of her wisdom. Even Vera, flawed and imperfect, had begun to grasp it too. She had started the hard work of seeing herself clearly, of making choices that no longer centered on control or manipulation. It was enough for me to know that my actions, firm, uncompromising, yet compassionate, had created a ripple that might finally reach her heart. And yet, the most important truth was simple. I had grown. I had endured. I had thrived. My children's laughter, the gentle sway of the ship, the soft breeze on my skin, these were the rewards of a life lived on my own terms. As the sun dipped into the horizon, painting the sky with hues of rose and gold, I whispered to myself, a quiet mantra that had become my truth. I will never shrink again. I am enough. I am unstoppable. And I will rise, always. That was the real victory. Not the money, not the cruise, not even Vera's stunned expressions. The victory was the woman I had become. Strong, compassionate, independent, and entirely, unapologetically myself. The waves lapped gently against the hull of the ship, and I knew, with a clarity I had never felt before, that no one could ever maroon me. Not physically, not emotionally, not ever again.